Welcome to the 10 Acre Woods. My name's Mark and it is a beautiful day. So I'm just out here with the animals. Here is Hazel and Sheldon. They're just eating their hay. So our farm, here's Atlas. Atlas here that likes to follow people around as well. Here we have 10 acres and it's all treed, thus the 10 Acre Woods. And there's not a lot of pasture land. So what we have to do is we have to subsidize the animals' meals with hay. Of course, more so during the winter time than this time of year, as they do go back and graze. So we give them some hay in the morning and in the evening, not nearly as much as during in the winter, just to keep them happy, keep them fed. Now, what I want to talk to you today about is fencing. So the first area that we started fencing, good morning, Petey and Piper. The first area we started with when we moved out here was this area here. You can see our electrical utility pole here, and we used to have a chicken coop over there, and then of course we had our 2 rabbit hutches, which we have now since closed in. So over the years we have added, expanded. There's a lot of you out there that are interested in starting a hobby farm and moving out to the country. Now, when we started, we actually used chain link fence. It was available, we got it free from somebody that donated it out, and we built in that area. Now, as we started to expand, one of them was probably in around 2003 when we got a truckload of rescued animals in. We didn't expect to be that many, but we had to push a little bit for expansion. So moving and expanding out of that area, out around the pond area. Now, of course, there wasn't an upper pond at that point, and it wasn't lined. We just had a dugout because it was a low water area, and we flooded quite often. So that was its primary use. So then we got into electric fencing, and you can kind of see the electric fencing running through the bush there. You might be able to see it. Basically, it's where the green shrubs start, because of course the animals aren't going over. We have grass going now around the pond, which is great to see, and it does take time. So we expanded it just out and around, and at that point we started using electric fencing. So I wanted to go over electric fencing in this video. We are working and partnered with Gallagher electric fencing, so they've sent me some equipment to show you and just to give you some information. Because I am working with Gallagher, I'm able to offer you a discount on their products, and I'll put that down below in the description. There'll be a code there that you can enter in upon checkout. At this time, you just want to put in 10 Acre Wood in the notes section when you do the checkout, and they'll process your discount once you go through and they process your credit card. And because of that, I'm also able to get money to come back from Gallagher from the sales to help out the animals here on the farm. So it's a win-win for everybody. Now, in the spring, we had a predator. Some of you, most of you that have been watching would have likely seen that. I saw lots of comments about what's happening with that. And we will take a walk back into that area where the coyote came in, and we'll discuss why, how, and when it happened, and what we've done, the steps we've taken to prevent that from happening, because he is no longer here. So that is good. Moved on to greener pastures, so to speak. So here's everybody here. We've got all the kids in here. There's 6 of them. We've got the 2 here. We have, here is Clyde. We've got the 3. We've got Charlotte, Toby, and Dwight, or Dwight, Charlotte, and Toby in order. It's Melvin, it looks like, in here. We've got the 2 kids, Molly and Melvin. So everybody's in here hanging out, and we're going to go back and we'll talk about that electric fencing. So when we first installed our first electric fence energizer, it was actually just over here, and now we've since built up this fencing here, and we have mounted it here. Now, I built this box years ago. These energizers are not weatherproof, so they should be in some kind of building, and this has kind of served its purpose well. So here is the energizer here. So this is the Gallagher M1100. M1100 series. Now this one is a little bit more overkill than what I necessarily need, but if you look up and see those lights flashing, that is the one feature that I really like about it. Now it tells you that you're getting full power on your line. If there was a problem with the line, then you wouldn't get those green lights. So that is a great feature for this unit. Now these units have ratings for them. So this particular one is rated with a typical fence of 36 miles or 280 acres. Then there is a clean fence section that states 110 miles and 650 acres. Okay, so what does clean fencing and typical fencing mean? You can see that clean fencing has a larger area. Typical fencing doesn't. It's a smaller zone. So the clean fencing is basically your theoretical values. So if you have no loss in resistance in your electrical system, you had no twigs or grass or branches or anything touching that line, you would get that clean fencing, which really you're not going to get. So you always want to look at the typical fencing because you are going to have green vegetation growing up and touching the electrical wire that runs around the property. So you will get some loss there. You can kind of think of it like a water pipe. So you have water, let's say it's water running through pipes instead of electricity running through electric fencing. So the size of the pipe with water in it is kind of your voltage. And then your amperage, which is the flow of water through that pipe. So now you think of the electric wire being the pipe, and you have leaks in your pipe, and those leaks would be branches touching or grass growing on the fence, something that's going to leak energy out of the electric fence. So you can look at that as leaks in your theoretical pipe. So how does electric fencing actually work? So what happens is you've got a positive and negative on your charger, and that negative will go down to what's called a ground rod. And that is going to ground the entire system. Now you have a positive lead that hooks up to the electrical wires running in your system. And we all know that if you touch a positive and negative on, say, a car battery, you're going to get a spark. So that's where you're going to get your shock or your energize from. And again, talking about vegetation on your electric positive line running through, that's going to bleed off some of that energy. So how do you tell how many ground rods you need for your system? So that can depend on a number of factors. How dry the area is, if you live in a desert type area, maybe say Arizona, or you live in a tropical region. We're not so tropical here, but we have a good ground base. So we actually only have 2 ground rods in our system, and I believe they go down about 6 or possibly 8 feet, in that range anyway, to get a nice ground system. You hear people of dying from electrocution, and what happens there is your house voltage, your, let's say 120 volts running through the power inside your house. That is a constant power. So what happens is if you touch that, all your muscles in your body are going to just tighten right up because it's going to energize everything in your body, and you're not going to be able to let go of that power. This works a little bit differently. It pulses. So it'll pulse approximately 1 pulse every second, and it just goes through a pulsing action. So an animal or a person touching that fence, they'll get an instantaneous shock, but then it'll be gone as quickly as it came, and that gives you the opportunity to jump back, which is pretty much a standard reaction when you touch electrical wiring. So it is a pretty windy day out today. It's been windy, you know, the last week, really, ever since like last weekend was windy. We haven't put our poly up on the greenhouse yet, but we've got some new hands come in today, so I think we might do it a little bit later. We're somewhat sheltered from the house, so it shouldn't be too bad. We got a plan all figured out. Now the coyote. So the coyote hasn't come around. He came in, and I think the total count was 2 birds that he got. He got one of the Chinese geese, and he got, I believe, a Muscovy duck was one of the other ones. It was a duck anyway. We caught it on camera and saw that he took one of them off. Now, where did he come in? So he came in from this back section here. This is in the southeastern section of our property. Our property actually extends down a little further, probably another 100 feet to the railway tracks back there. And he came through in this way here. Now, this is the fencing system we currently have. You can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires. This one is not energized. And if it was, I would know it right away here. It's wrapped around the post. This is just more of a visual for the alpacas. Now, what had happened was we did have a line right here at the bottom. But for some reason, it broke. We were moving around the fencing, and it didn't get put back on. So you can see that gap. You're looking at probably 14 inches from the second wire down to the ground. And that went, because the ground kind of goes up and down in this area, it's larger and smaller, the gap. So he could easily come in here without a problem. So now, if he were to come up, he would get zapped by that bottom line. And some of that material that I mentioned about things touching the line, you can see here, this little plant. Woohoo! I got a shock actually through the plant. It wasn't full strength, but we'll just take that off. So that's a prime example to show you how that bleed, that energy bleed, or the water pipe leak, however you want to look at it, happens. It will shock through green plants. Everybody seems to be getting along nicely. The only problem we have when we have visitors that come to the farm and we have to put away is this little one right here. So this is Flora, and she came in from a friend of ours who lost her other sheep. So this one here was a little sad, lonely, and of course it was still cold. You can notice that she is sheared. She was sheared fairly early, and there was concern about her actually getting pneumonia or some other conditions that she would pass away as well. But she's a head butter, and goats and especially sheep can be really sneaky. They can be standing around and then just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, knock you down. And it happened, actually brings me up to a story. It was Turbo, wherever Turbo is. Actually, Turbo's over there. What had happened was, and it happened right here. So you can see the bench here behind me. There was a lady, and I did catch it on camera. I'll have to see if I can grab that footage. But he was standing kind of up there on the hill, and they were standing here looking at some animals. And then what happens is, for no reason at all, Turbo decides that he is going to knock her down. Yeah, it was just, it's not something we want to see. So I'm up here at the front area. This is where Carl and Billy hang out in here, and as you can see, some of the guineas. So I wanted to go over a few of the devices, and one of them is this little guy here. So there is a grounding a grounding piece that goes into the ground, and of course it goes into the ground. Where else would it go, Mark? It's a grounding stake. And then you've got the different lights that come on here. So what you do is you would take and you would put this section here in the ground. Now I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but on the back here you can see this little metal contact. So what happens is you hold that on there and you should see, get into the shade here, you should see those lighting up. Now the top one is lighting up just a little bit. I can see it with my eyes. It might be tough on camera. But what that means is I've got full voltage on this line. Even with all those trees, you still get quite a bit of wind that blows in. So that gauge, that analog gauge, is a nice tool to have, and it's something I've used for years, just to have a look at that fence and figure out if I'm at full power. But something that I learned existed fairly recently is this guy here. So, you know, I had the electric fence charger, I had my wire, I knew what I was doing, I didn't need any other tools, but it's nice to learn about different types of tools. So this is great because it tells you the actual voltage on the line. Something else that works well is one of these guys here, and it basically flashes when it gets no voltage on the line. Gallagher also makes one that flashes with an active line, so once it's installed in an area, preferably at the opposite end of your charger, so that if the line goes down somewhere, you can see that that light will go out, or if you're using a device like this, the light will come on and start flashing. The active fence light is white, and generally the downed no voltage lights or flashers are red, so that you can distinguish, you know, is it a red warning or is it just a white for power. So the way this works here is you come over to your fence and it actually comes on there. See, it's on here. I'm a ways from the fence. I'm about a foot away, and you can see that I am getting 800 volts. You can see at that bottom line. So this is what, and I've talked about this before, horses can sense, you know, all their little nose hairs can sense where there's an electric fence. So being that far away, you can just see how that voltage travels through the air. So if I touch it against the top metal plate, you can see that this fence is currently running at 7,800 volts. 7,700. It's going down. Okay, it's just it's just a coincidence that it happens. It's going at 7,500. And amperage is the top line. So this down here is your pipe size, and this is your water flow or your energy flow. As we discussed earlier. So I'm going to draw off a little bit off the line, which is normal, which is why you want to look at that typical fencing versus a clean fencing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to intentionally make a leak in my pipe or my electricity to ground. And I'm going to use that by, I've got this metal rod here. I'm going to attach that to the fence and to ground. So I'm going to come over here. I have to be very careful about this, that I don't, I'll just drop it right there on the line. So now we can see, there's our grounding system. So I'm going to now take my fault finder and I'm going to come over to the line here. We're going to see what happens. I will connect it on. Oh, and you can see there. So I'm down to 6,500 volts, 6.5 kilovolts, but I've got a 4 amp leak. So that's my electricity or water leak, and it's pointing in the direction of it. Now what that means is that's the direction of the current that's moving, or the water flow in your pipe, however you want to look at it. Some people tend to think that that arrow indicates the direction of your leak. So if I come over to the other side of the line here and attach it, what happens is, see, I've only got 0.3. I'm back to where I was, but my voltage is low and I have no arrow showing. So what that means is I'm losing about 1,000 volts through that grounding rod. So it's a great tool. to be able to figure out at a glance where and what was happening with your system. Somebody's got an itchy belly. I posted the other day about a rock that Billy here likes, his favorite rock. He stands on it all the time, but I guess that will be Carl's favorite belly rubbing stone. Hey boys, you going up front? So here, we've just got the two boys and of course the guinea fowl up here. But you can see the amount of green growth there is on the, in terms of grass. So there's quite a bit of material up here. We were thinking about possibly moving Flora up here since she was being a troublemaker, and then she would gain access to that feed as well. Look at this, I turn around, Atlas. So Atlas has been inside the last couple years because we were concerned about the roosters. And we have found homes for a bunch of the roosters. We've got a few left, but we decided, Atlas can come outside now. We were concerned about him getting beat up by other animals or other roosters. So now if I walk away, he's just gonna follow me. We have our turkey Fernando does the same thing. So I guess little Atlas here wants to be more like Fernando. I don't know where Fernando is. I think he's probably out back at our garden, which we'll go back there and shortly and have a look at that. So speaking of Facebook and Instagram posts, there was another one I made this past week. And just as I'm coming to my back door, I noticed it's happening again. Who do we have here? But Fernando, yes, Fernando. So we have a walkout basement, and we're inside here, and I came downstairs the other day, and there he was, butted up against the window. Let me in, or somebody come outside, I'm lonely. Now, we are open to the public on Saturdays and Sundays throughout the spring, summer, and fall in the afternoons, but of course, that's not good enough for Fernando, is it? He loves people. Oh, hi, Piper. Hi. You're probably looking for some food, aren't you? Yes, you're looking for food. Piper's not as grumpy as Petey. She is a little bit more hands-on. But Petey's just a big old whiner, see? Oh no, human, go away. No matter, you know, he's been here for a couple years. It doesn't matter. He's just an extreme introvert. He's like, I don't want anybody around me. I want to sleep and eat in peace. Oh, poor Petey. So again, the Gallagher electric fencing, you can purchase that off their website. There are 2 links down below in the description. You can apply that, the code that's there as well, on the website to get your discount. If you're in Canada, there's a Canadian link. If you're in the US, there's a US link there. I don't know if you're in other parts of the world, if you can go and use either of those links, but give it a shot. Hey. And then, of course, you get your discount, and then we get a little bit to go directly to the animals to help us here on the farm. So yesterday, we started using or welding some more of the racking that we got last year. If you watched the previous video, or one of the previous videos about our greenhouse build, which we still haven't quite got on the poly. Hopefully today we'll do that. Tara also wants a trellis system, which is essentially the greenhouse but without the poly on it, so that her plants can grow up that trellis work over and have kind of a, well, really it'll be a greenhouse because it'll all be vines growing up it, a green and white house, I guess. So here yesterday we were putting together the pieces, and these are the lengths here. You can see these are 12 feet long that stand upright, and then there were shelves that go in between them. So what we ended up doing is we cut them in half at 6 feet, and then we bent them in half, And then we use the brackets that go between the upright shelves, which are 2 feet, and we've hooked them on at designated areas. And then we've taken 2 of those units and we put them together to make one 2-foot section. I think I am being watched. And who I am being watched by, you can probably see her there. That is the Flycatcher. And I'm standing a little bit too close to the nest. So she's been flying around me and above me ever since I got into this spot. And of course the reason is because her babies are in the nest right there. A little tough to see. So I did set a camera up in that area, and it looks like about a week, I would say a week, 10 days for fledging. They're starting to, but of course that could be, who knows, it could be like 4 days or 2 days. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow. But they're getting huge and they're overflowing the nest. So we've been monitoring and watching those all week. We've been posting them on our Facebook and Instagram. So if you haven't checked out our Instagram or Facebook account, you can head over there and check out that. I seem to have lost track of time. I wanted to get this video out on time, Sunday evening. I got held up during open farm. So we're open up on Saturdays and Sundays to the public for people to come out and enjoy. And then she being my wife, Tara, wants to have the garden area here also available for people to come out and to hang out and to learn things. We do seed swaps in the spring, and then kind of turns into plant swaps, which didn't work out too well this year because, of course, the pandemic, and then, of course, you know, social distancing and all. So it didn't quite work out. So next year, I think we'll retry the whole thing. Now that everything's kind of opening up and we are outside, it's a much easier way to social distance. So here is, well, part of it anyway. So this section here, as you saw from the time lapse, we built them. How many? We got 7, I think it is. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, we got 7 of them. So they're about roughly 2 feet each. So we're looking at about 14 feet. And then she wants to continue along down to that point right there. And then I think she even talked about going that way, but I think that might be too much. I don't know. With Tara, I guess nothing is too much. So this will be, that'll be interesting to see how things go. She wanted to make sure she got it done right away because these peas here are going to want to climb up something fairly shortly. So over here we've got it just on the inside, and they'll be able to grow up from here up this trellis. And then the whole idea is you'll be able to pick your peas and your cucumbers and everything from there. So we'll see how that works. Now this area here is the greenhouse, meaning it's going to have poly covered over top of it. Now with all this wind the last week, we haven't got to it. We did have a frost kind of warning the other night, but everything seemed to be working well. It didn't get down too low. It didn't kill too many plants. Everything looks like it's happening. Tomatoes. And then at the back here, we have our exhaust fan. So this exhaust ventilation fan is going to be sitting in this area here. I've got a thermostat that I'm going to hook up probably here, and it's hooked up to a plug-in. Then whenever the temperature hits a certain height or level, then it will kick on that fan and start to cool it so we don't cook our vegetables too soon. And that is it for yet another video. So I hope you learned lots, and if you didn't, well, ask a question down below in the comment section. We always love to hear from our viewers. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I've seen a bunch of new subscribers come on board. Go back and you can check out on our playlists. So 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. Wow, been doing this for quite a while now, I guess. Anyway, I wish you all a happy week, and we'll see you next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.